Hey y'all, welcome back. This is part 4 of my anniversary Telecaster build, and if you haven't seen the other parts, like I always say, make sure you go back and check those out. And don't forget, subscribe so you don't miss the last episode of this series. But we're going to get started on a few things today, so let's jump in. Alright, well, tuner installation on this is very simple. We've got these Fender Tuners that have the locating pegs. There's really not much to it on the back side, so I can show you just on the front that all you need to do is drop the tuner in, thread the nut onto the front of the headstock, and then tighten it down. Not super tight, but tight enough not to move on the nut with the socket wrench. And that's pretty much it. So I'll finish the other 5 and this will be done. Okay, well now I've taken this control plate and I've just set it in place. I ran the wire and the jack through and just screwed it in to the little cup there. So I think that's a 5/8 socket or something like that. But just all you do is put that in there with one of those toothed washers on the back side and then just tighten it down. That keeps the toothed washer just keeps everything grounded and it keeps everything from moving around too much. So I don't have anything wired in here yet, but I did set the neck pickup in the hole and I just ran the wire through the body. And the other thing I did was, while this was sitting up, I just took the screws and pushed an impression of where the screws land down into the wood to give myself a starting point for the screw for the drilling for the mounting. And I also got another pick guard, and it's hard to explain why I did that, but it's the same color, but this one is a Music Lily pick guard, and I'm gonna take the other one back. The reason I got this is because I noticed that that Kaish pickguard that I had didn't fit nearly as well as the last Musically pickguard I got, and I started comparing, and the place for the bridge, this notch for the bridge, is actually quite a bit further to one side on the other pickguard, or maybe it's the neck notch, but between the two they weren't quite totally in alignment, and I like the alignment of this Musically one a lot better. It gives me good even spacing on each side of the bridge, and you can see it gives good even spacing, like right down that center line for the control plate. You got about even space on each side of that for that little radius there. So I don't know, it's not a Fender pickguard again, but it fits way better than the other one, so had to switch that out, and I'll just take the other one back to Amazon. Alright, well, oh, and one other thing. This is a 5-hole pickguard instead of an 8-hole, so fewer screw holes, and it lays flatter. I don't know if you noticed it or not, but in my last time I showed the other pickguard, it kind of was a little bit warped. This one's just dead flat. So now I think I'm going to go ahead and mount the neck pickup, or just get it, screwed down into the wood. Now again, this is a vintage style mounting, so there are no holes in the pickguard itself. What you do is you take your pickguards, or your pickup screws, and you run them through the pickup facing down, and you screw them straight into the body of the guitar. That's called direct mounting of a pickup. So you'll still use a spring or a piece of tubing on the back side, so your pickup goes in between these two pieces, but this will screw down into the wood, and you can still raise and lower it by tightening it and loosening it. But I am gonna go ahead and pre-drill a little bit of a hole just to make that easier to do, and so that I don't split the pine. So I can remove this now. and I've got my indentions in there. Let me find a drill bit that's going to work for this. Okay, I just want something really tiny, so I'm going to go in. Oh, let's see. I got to make sure I don't drill through the guitar, so let me do a little bit of measuring here. Alright, well that is 54/64. Let's see what it is in 30 seconds. Yeah, 27/32 deep, and the whole body is 1.75 inches, but if I'm being really picky, it's 1.23 inches. And the screw is not quite 1 inch long, and I don't need all of it. So let's say I want a 3/4 hole, and this was 27/32. That won't come out the backside. Alright, let's do that. Alright, well that fits pretty good. So you might be wondering, how do you adjust the pickup height if you have the strings on? And the answer is that you just take the pickguard off. There's really nothing that would prevent the pickguard coming off if you have the strings on even. It's just a matter of getting it up over the pickup and the neck and sliding it right out. So that's how you do that. You just adjust it. You know, you do all your setup with the pickguard off, and when you have everything at the height you want, put the pickguard back on. Slide it under the strings and put it back on. Alright, so all that's in place. I think the next thing to do is to mount this pickguard. I'm pretty happy with where it is. Let me get my drill bit set up. Okay, so the control plate essentially uses the same size screws as a pickguard does, but you notice that the hole for the control plates is actually a lot wider than the normal pickguard, and I hesitate to use these Fender pickguard screws because they have such a small head. I mean, that's good on a pickguard, but I want to make sure I use one with a slightly larger head for this control plate. Actually, I need to put a pilot in first. Once the control plate's installed, you do have to remove it and flip it upside down in order to finish this group of ground wires here for the pickups and the bridge, and then the 2 individual connections for each pickup. Okay, well that completes my connections, so all that's left to do is flip things over and stuff everything back into this hole. And that's pretty simple. So I think I'm to the point where the next step is strings, and like I said about the nut earlier, Fender ships these necks with the nuts with just sort of a suggestion of where the slot goes. And you could, if you wanted to, completely file off the top of the nut and start over with a new slot. But I like to use where the slots are, but you have to, if you're going to string the guitar and start to set up the nut, you have to go ahead and slot those slots a little bit more, or they won't even hold the strings at all. So I'm going to use this hybrid slinky set of strings. It's what I prefer to use, it's a 9 to 46, so it's got sort of the top end of a set of 10s and the bottom end of a set of 9s. And these, they're, you know, any set of strings you use, they're going to tell you what the gauges are of each string. And when I'm slotting a nut, I usually pick a file that is just a few thousandths or maybe up to 6 thousandths more than the slot that, or than the size of this string that is listed. So like for this 9, I'm going to use a 12 file. And for the 11, I don't have a file that close to the 11, so I'm going to use a 17. And so on and so forth, and I'll go all the way up to a 52 for the 46. But by using a little bit bigger file than the actual gauge of the string itself, it's going to allow me two things. One, it's going to allow me a little space for the string to slide in the slot back and forth. And two, it's going to allow me to be able to go up a set of strings. So if I want to go up to a set of 10s, I won't have any problems fitting those in. Probably even like a set of 11s I could get away with without having to re-slot the nuts. So that's what I'm going to use. You know, I don't know if everybody does it that way. That's just the way I do it. So your mileage may vary. But anyway, let's get started. Oh, by the way, what I'm doing right now is just laying down an initial slot. That's going to allow me to string the guitar, and I'm not really finishing the nut slots at all. If I was going to do that, I'd get out a feeler gauge and I would actually measure the distance between the string and the first fret. But this is just to prime it for the string installation. Okay, so that has widened the suggested slots that Fender has laid into the nut, and it's deepened them just a little bit. I don't really go that deep. I just go maybe about the depth of like half of a string, and that will allow me to sort of set those in that slot without them sliding around left or right. So the next thing is going to be going ahead and stringing this thing. Alright, well this wraps up episode 4 of the 5-part Telecaster build series on my anniversary Telecaster here. Make sure that you click the subscribe button so you get to see episode 5 and you don't miss it. I really appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to click the like button if you like my videos, and I'll see you guys next time.